All truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them. Galileo Galilei. According to the biblical creation story in the Hebrew Bible, the book of Genesis says, Eve, the first woman, was created from Adam's rib bone and given the breath of life. In recent years, there's been an extraordinary leap in knowledge of the human genome as the advances in genetic technology and human genome research rapidly progressed. These genetics studies can give us profound insight into our ancestry, and by now thousands of genomes from a cross-section of ethnic backgrounds have been sequenced. Homo sapiens are the only existing human species today, and after testing thousands of living people, we can show that the oldest mitochondrial DNA sequence comes from a common ancestor of us all, Mitochondrial Eve. In human genetics, the mitochondrial Eve is defined as the most recent woman from whom all living humans descend in an unbroken line purely through their mothers and through the mothers of those mothers, back until all lines converge on one woman. The piece of the mitochondrial Eve's DNA that has been traced comes from something called the mitochondria. Mitochondria are often referred to as the powerhouses of the cell, as they help turn the energy we take from food into energy that the cell can use. There is a DNA inside the mitochondria, and it's this DNA that has been traced back to a single common female ancestor of African origin who lived around 200,000 years ago. We know this because the studies measure variations in living humans, plus the average rate of mutation over time in mitochondrial DNA permits us to calculate when the ancestor of all living mitochondrial DNA chromosomes was alive. Humans have been around for a long time. In the hundreds of thousands of years we've been walking the planet, our numbers have grown. How is it even possible that only about 200,000 years ago, a single woman became the great-grandmother of us all? Shouldn't human history go further back than that? Given that mitochondrial Eve is thought to have lived during a time when there were other women alive, there are a couple of explanations for how only Eve's mitochondrial DNA alone could have survived, and most likely a combination of converging factors is responsible. The likeliest possibility is that an evolutionary bottleneck occurred among humankind while mitochondrial Eve was alive. This is a situation where a large majority of the members of a species suddenly die out, bringing the species to the verge of extinction. It could be the result of a catastrophe of some sort, for example, a comet hitting the Earth. One hypothesis about recent human evolution, advocated by Professor Stanley Ambrose of the University of Illinois, suggests that we came very close to extinction because of a volcanic winter that occurred about 71,000 years ago. He believes that the event that caused the near loss of our species was the eruption of Mount Toba in Sumatra, reducing population to only about 15,000 people on the whole planet. The volcanic winter lasted about 6 years, and it was followed by 1,000 years of the coldest ice age the planet has seen. Afterward, just a few members of the population remained to repopulate the group and continue to evolve. Bottlenecks are suspected to have taken place at different times in humanity's history, so it's not a far-fetched notion that an event like this could have taken place during Eve's lifetime, creating a genetic bottleneck. These genetics studies found that the lineage of all people alive today falls on one of two branches in humanity's family tree that came from mitochondrial Eve. One branch is entirely African. The other branch contains all other groups, including some African lineage. Although this new method of determining genetics answered many questions, and even more impressive, the geneticists concluded that every person on Earth right now can trace his or her lineage back to a single common female ancestor. These methods have actually opened up Pandora's box, leaving us with some mysteries that still remain unexplained. Why did humans evolve from two entirely different pathways? And how come after millions of years, all of a sudden, so many races evolved within such a short period of time? Millions of miles away from the Earth, in between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, hundreds of thousands of asteroids orbit the Sun in what is known as the asteroid belt. In the 18th century, Johann Titius, a German astronomer, noted a mathematical pattern for the layout of the planets and used it to predict the existence of one between Mars and Jupiter. Everyone was wildly excited by the strange gap between Mars and Jupiter. Soon after that, 25 astronomers organized a group known as the Celestial Police, searching for the missing planet. But instead of a planet, they found what appeared only to be pieces of one. This area is known as our solar system's asteroid belt. The asteroid belt is a region of the solar system falling roughly between the planets Mars and Jupiter, where the greatest concentration of asteroid orbits can be found. There are a number of theories as to how the asteroid belt was created. Astronomers think that the asteroid belt is made up of material that was never able to form into a planet, or of the remains of a planet which broke apart a very long time ago. Occasionally, people wonder whether the belt was made up of the remains of a destroyed planet, or a world that didn't quite get started. However, according to NASA, the total mass of the belt is less than the Moon, far too small to weigh in as a planet. Ancient Greeks were known to observe planets quite diligently because they believed that gods traveled the skies and navigated between stars in space. All the names that ancient Greeks gave to planets in our solar system are still identifiable today, and there's never been any doubt which planet was which. There's a story in Greek mythology about a planet that exploded. That planet was called Python. Is it possible that our ancestors embedded the event in their belief system because they actually witnessed a planetary explosion and they just couldn't explain it in any other way? There is the other legend saying that once in our solar system was a planet called Maldek, and it was destroyed by its own violent inhabitants eons ago. The legend also states that some of its inhabitants managed to escape and colonize Earth, and roughly 3/4 of our population are these descendants. Can we determine today what is a myth and what is an actual fact in those legends? Some people may think that the ancient Greek story of the planet Phaeton perishing in a flash could be a result of collective hallucination or stupidity of ancient Greeks. However, we should consider some material evidence that still exists there before making any conclusion whether a planet has indeed exploded in our solar system or not. If the planetary explosion occurred somewhere in our solar system in the distant past, we should be able to find the evidence of it today. This is due to the fact that the debris from the exploded planet would not vanish, as after a planet explodes, the center of mass of all debris should still circle the Sun along a trajectory similar to the trajectory of the planet before explosion. The center of mass of the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter is near Ceres, which is the largest asteroid in that asteroid belt. Coincidence? Since explosion is a process that creates energy in all directions, the mass distribution of the debris in the resulting belt should be similar in the axial and radial directions. This is due to the elementary conservation of momentum principle. Interestingly, the size of the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter is similar in axial and radial directions. Coincidence? In 2018, a study from researchers at the University of Florida, published in the journal Nature Astronomy, has confirmed that the inner asteroid belt was indeed created by destroyed planets, likely several small planetoids. It's important to say that this is contrary to what has been stated by mainstream science and academics for past decades, as they were strictly denying this possibility and often called those who suggested it pseudoscientists. In fact, the consensus amongst mainstream scientists has been that the asteroid belt was created from leftovers from the formation of our solar system, which gravitational forces of Jupiter prevented from forming of an additional planet. So, as that has been constantly repeated by mainstream media, we can see another example of mainstream science debunking themselves once again. Of course, that has been the case through our history, that essentially what we think we know today turns out to be something completely different tomorrow. But that still leaves us with the question, why the otherwise perfectly mathematical pattern of our solar system has a vacancy? Researchers have spent decades looking for evidence of ancient water on Mars. As technology has progressed, more evidence has come to light that the red planet used to have rivers, lakes, and even oceans billions of years ago. But changes in the atmosphere have made it much colder. In fact, some of the water is still locked up in polar ice caps and possibly underground. In 2015, NASA scientists have announced an exciting discovery that could help them get closer to answering the question of whether there is life on Mars. NASA has released high-tech satellite pictures which they say shows evidence of flowing water on the red planet. Researchers have seen small streaks that change in different weather. What does it all mean? They believe that 5 meters wide dark streaks on the surface have been caused by trickling water that freezes and unfreezes during different seasons on the planet. It also means that the planet could be suitable for certain types of life. It's big news because if it's confirmed, it could prove there is the potential for life there. Some researchers speculate about the possibility that ancient alien civilizations once existed on Mars and was cut short by the destructive power of nuclear warfare. So what's that theory based on? It's based on something called xenon-129. The gas isotope xenon-129 is radioactive and also does not occur naturally. It's the result of a nuclear explosion. Dr. John Brandenburg, a plasma physicist, an expert in propulsion technologies and a former consultant on space missile defense and directed energy weapons, suggested a theory in which he states that a nuclear explosion may have occurred at some point about 180 million years ago on Mars. Dr. Brandenburg also believes that this nuclear explosion on Mars is what wiped out all life on the red planet. According to his published research, Mars has a high concentration of xenon-129 in the atmosphere. The peculiar isotope is produced during a nuclear reaction. Other elements on Mars that are considered evidence of a nuclear explosion on Mars are uranium and thorium. According to Brandenburg, 2 large nuclear explosions at 2 sites on the planet occurred at some point in the past on Mars. The theory of nuclear explosions on Mars comes from high concentration of radioactive xenon-129 on the planet. NASA has known for some time, however, that Mars has a very high concentration of the gas isotope xenon-129 in its atmosphere. Dr. Glenn Seaborg was one of the most remarkable and influential nuclear chemists of the 20th century. The head of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission and the winner of the Nobel Prize for Chemistry. This great scientist is clear with one point, that these nuclear reactions could not have happened naturally. So if the reactions weren't natural, the implication is that some intelligent beings caused them. Don't miss the next episode of The Hidden History of the Human Origin. The Anunnaki, ancient gods or genetic engineers, where we will ask more questions. Was our race genetically engineered? Were we created by beings from distant space to work as laborers towards unknown? What if the secret is lying in the ruins of a once powerful society awaiting our discovery? Could this secret uncovered in Earth's little corner of the universe be considered Genesis revisited? Why is only less than 3% of our DNA active? What is the connection between Sumer, the cradle of civilization, the Garden of Eden, and our origin? Thank you for watching this episode, and hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. We really hope you subscribe, and if you'd like to be notified of future releases, just hit the bell button. Leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on all of this and what topics would you like to explore in our future videos.